So, hi everyone, welcome to another edition of Exquisitely Human, sponsored by CareerJ.com. I'm Diane Evans, and I'm delighted to have a guest on today, Jane Dyer, who is going to tell us her story. Jane was born with a physical disability, but she absolutely does not let it define her. So, welcome, Jane. Thank you so much for speaking to us. And please, can you tell us a little bit more about your story, please?
Oh, hi. Thank you for inviting me.
You're very welcome.
Well, as you introduced me, I'm Jane, and I was born in the 60s with spina bifida.
Jane, could you just actually explain to myself and the listeners what spina bifida is, please?
Yeah, it's when a baby is developing in the womb, the spinal cord doesn't join together properly. And when that happens, from that point where it doesn't join together properly, there's varying degrees of paralysis.
Goodness.
And it can also affect your some people have learning difficulties. Other people that have spina bifida, you wouldn't know they had any disability when you saw them.
Wow, thank
So
you.
it's quite it's known as a snowflake disability
Okay.
because every individual is so different. So you couldn't look at me and think, oh, that's what spina bifida is
Okay,
necessarily.
that's really interesting actually, and really enlightening for myself, and I'm sure the listeners as well. And actually, what a great way to sort of define it as a snowflake, that everybody is different. Because actually, this is what the
Mm,
podcasts are about
yeah,
being exquisitely human, as all
yeah.
being different, and that's okay. So, tell us a little bit more then about your background and your journey to get you to where you are right now.
Well, as I said, I was born in the 60s, and then shortly afterwards, my parents split up. So I was brought up as with a single parent. So you can imagine that in the 60s, a young mum with a disabled child. So she had her challenges, I think,
Yeah.
but that I think has made me stronger, learning from her strength. I went to mainstream nursery and primary school, which I really enjoyed. Just got on with mixing up with all the other kids. And at primary school, I remember the teachers used to ring my mum up and say, "Oh, can Jane do this?" And my mum used to say, "She'll tell you if she can't."
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing.
So I just had a go at things.
Well done.
We moved about a lot. I was brought up in Lancashire, and then when I was at primary school, we were in Suffolk.
Okay.
So from there, I went to secondary school, and I went to secondary school just for one term
Okay.
because that we were in the 1980s then, 70s, sorry, and it was before the 1980 something Education Act, and schools weren't encouraged to be open to educating everyone.
Right.
So really, I think not knowingly to me, I think power because I was only a child of about 12 then, that I ended up going to a special school.
Okay. How did that make you feel then? What experience did you have from mainstream school to going into a special school?
Well, I think at that age you are more aware than when you're a lot younger, aren't you? And I felt as though I was not treated equally, and I wasn't given a chance, and people were prejudiced against me. This is the senior management of the school,
Okay. So
not
how?
not individual teachers or the
Right.
students.
Okay. So did you feel held back or support?
Definitely, most
Obviously.
certainly.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, and I felt that the things I wanted to do were taken away from me going to special school because it was definitely a change going to special school in those days.
Okay.
that it was more about life skills than academic education,
Right. Okay. Which,
which
is frustrating
something
for
I
you.
didn't need and
Yeah,
was
absolutely. So you did
frustrating.
about 4 years there then, did you? Did you do four
No, well, I
years?
went to special school when I was about 12, 13,
Okay.
and I stayed there till I was 16.
Okay. And what happened next?
Next, well, because me and another student who was academic as well raised these issues, they found us a place at the local college. So we went there to do our 16 to 18 education, and I did business studies. So that was similar. It's not something I would have chosen to do,
No.
but again, it was similar to how I got into special school.
Okay.
It was what other people were doing in that time that they thought was best for you.
Mm. So how did you feel then in comparison to going to the special school to then going to college? What
Oh,
challenges
that was
did you
much
have?
better.
Absolutely. And what
Yeah.
advantages then,
Yeah. Well, I could just get on with it. Everything the same as any other 16-year-olds, and involved in the coursework, on the trips that were part of this coursework. We did residentials, so I just got on with it.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and we did, and I remember they did all sorts of different vocational things at lunch times. So we did keep fit classes and all sorts of things in the
Wow.
days when it was leotards.
Yeah. And leg warmers.
Yeah,
Yeah. That's amazing. So actually, I can see your face light up actually from the memories of being given this freedom, if you like, of
yeah.
choice within the education system. So well done. So take us then a next step further on what happened once you'd got your qualifications.
Well, when I'd done college, then it was opening doors to employment. And I remember the first interview I got, and that was partly arranged by the college, I think, because they thought they were doing a good thing. And I was studying business studies. It was in a bank, and I didn't ever wanted to work in a bank.
Oh gosh.
But I thought it was either a bank or an opportunity to go to university.
Okay.
And this was the people at college had given me that opportunity. And like everyone else, if you don't go for that, I could have had a job or I could have gone to university. So I chose to go to university
Wow. Okay.
because that's the chance that you won't, if you give up, you've lost it, haven't you?
Absolutely. So well done you to sticking to your guns really,
Yeah,
and doing what you want to do rather than being
yeah,
sent on a path that wasn't for you.
yeah,
Okay, so
yeah,
you did university. How was that? Did you find any
yeah,
challenges there? Were you supported there?
yeah. They were quite good actually. I was supported there. Mobility was quite a problem because going to the different locations because it was spread out all across a town. So
Okay.
things like that were quite a challenge, but I managed it. I just have to think, and that's the general thing for me, getting from A to B. I just have to make sure I give myself a bit longer.
Yeah, yeah. Well done
So
you. Well
you
done.
just get round it because that's the way I was brought up. Not to think I can't do something, find a way to be able to do it.
Absolutely. So, I know you don't like this word challenges, but I'm going to say it anyway. What sort of challenges? You've mentioned already some challenges that you came upon, but is there any challenges now that you still find annoying or a struggle that you can share with us today?
Now, I think if I go back a step to after looking for employment,
Okay.
and the point where you're trying to leave home and get a house share, things like that. That's where I first noticed real challenges of discrimination, I would say,
Okay.
because people would assume I can't do things or that things would be difficult, so they wouldn't employ me.
Okay.
When I went to interviews, they'd find another reason to say I wasn't right for the job, which
Right.
often, some case it would be correct, but often not.
So how
Uh,
did that make you feel then? What was the feeling then, time after time? You know, you felt you were being discriminated against because of
I
your
suppose
physical disability.
I don't like to think of myself being like this, but I suppose I got angry. You would feel angry. I would feel angry,
Understandable. Yeah.
because I could see it was discrimination, and still today, I think often you can face discrimination, but you can't. It's hard to prove it was discrimination,
Yeah. Yeah.
so you walk away, don't you, and don't pursue it often.
No.
So,
No. But you
so that
say,
happened when I was applying for my early jobs
okay.
a few times,
Okay.
some more obvious than others.
Okay. Okay.
And then the same when I was applying for flat shares. When I got to the door, then they say that there isn't a place when I travelled to the next town where I worked
Mm.
for the house share. So you knew that was because of the disability.
But like you've mentioned, you were brought up by a single mum in the end who was really strong and encouraged you to be
Yeah.
strong, that you carried on regardless to get to where
Mm.
you are right now. So tell us a little
Yeah.
bit more then about, you know, the latter state of employment and how you became to be self-employed.
All right. Well, I had an office job when I first got a job in a computer IT business, being a PA, which was a job for a job, having a job, really. Not something I wanted to stay in for long. And then they relocated, so I had to get another job. That was fine. And then I ended up with a job in the civil service where I stayed for 20 years.
Did you enjoy
Like,
that job? You stopped for 20 years. Did you enjoy it?
I did enjoy it mostly, but like a lot of people, I think end up in a career and then you get married, you have a mortgage, you have children, so you don't think you can do anything. You feel not trapped, but
Yeah.
because I did like the job mostly, you
Okay.
carry on because you're paying bills and things, don't you? So,
Absolutely. So
so
tell
that's
us
how I
about.
stayed there 20 years.
Yeah, okay. So tell us about how you left that 20 years career to become what you are now.
Well, my civil service career started in Suffolk, where I was living with my family, and then I moved to London, and then it moved to Yorkshire. So, and then not too long after that, they were having packages for people to leave when they were reducing the civil service. So I thought, well, shall I take this opportunity? And this was another thing about discrimination, I think. They asked people who'd had sick leave, but
Okay.
it was just a coincidence that that particular year I had two, I wouldn't call long periods of sick leave because I had two surgeries. So I wasn't off with a cold or anything like that.
Okay.
So they asked those people first if they wanted to leave.
Okay.
So when that first happened, I was determined, well, I'm not going to leave because this is why you're asking me.
Right.
But then not too long afterwards, I changed that around and think, well, do I want to continue working with an organisation that would do that?
Right.
So then I decided, well, yeah, I will leave. So I left and retrained to be a teaching assistant. And the market in that market is quite saturated, so it's difficult to get a permanent job because I think people already in those jobs change hours when vacancies come up. So, at- and then at that point, sadly, I got divorced and I met my new partner. And he said, well, what's the worst that can happen when if you start your own business, you only lose the money you put into it? So I thought, oh, well, I'll give that a go. And that's how I ended up starting my own business.
That's brilliant. And did you feel, obviously it was a bit scary, it's like everything, isn't it? It can be a bit
Yeah,
scary, and you've got that support of your wonderful
yeah,
partner, which is great.
yeah.
Um, so, if you just to explain a little bit about what you actually do now then, and how actually, you know, your bias in a sense has helped you towards this business? I know again your bias, your disability
Yeah,
doesn't define you, but if you'd like to
no,
explain a little bit to us,
yeah.
please.
Well, I think going back to my upbringing, and I've always had a if you want to, you can do, and you will do sort of attitude. That's
Right.
was instilled in me from as early as I can remember
Yeah.
from my family. So I've always had that, and I have done voluntary work with people with learning disabilities, supporting them in further education and in social clubs. And I've also got two adopted children who have various challenges from early years.
Okay.
So I think, and the work I did in the civil service, they were all around supporting people in education, the lower achievers. So I think I've always naturally steered towards helping other people reach their potential.
Yeah.
So that's what I started to do in my business. It was supporting business owners and employees that have got health or disability issues that are getting in the way of them and their business and their work. So I do one-to-one coaching with those individuals, and I also do workshops and awareness raising for employers so that a lot of the challenges I faced they may not face, and workplaces can be more inclusive
Yeah.
for
Okay.
everyone because if people have their awareness raised that the simple solutions for people with any health issue or disability to get around the work, like flexible working, for example. And I think COVID has taught us a lot about different ways of working, and the work still gets done.
It certainly does. So, Jane, just tell me your opinion a little bit about diversity and inclusion. You mentioned a little bit about inclusion there, but what's your opinion on it generally?
Generally, I think a lot of diversity and inclusion awareness that's around focuses on race and gender,
Okay.
not so much on disability.
Okay.
And when I think of inclusion, I'm thinking about everyone for anything. You could have Crohn's disease, for example, something nobody would ever see. You could have dyslexia, you could have asthma, anything.
Okay.
Everybody's got their own specific needs. So I try and help people express their needs, be confident enough to express their needs, and help employers feel comfortable enough and aware enough to meet those needs. So it's a
Yeah.
two-way.
Yeah, I was going to say that two-way
Thing.
conversation, which is essential,
It
isn't
is.
it? You know, for
It
employer and
is. Yeah.
employee, absolutely essential.
Yeah.
So, so could you tell me if you've taken any challenges on before, i.e., anything, have you done anything that you might like to share with us to inspire us or that you've actually done recently or in the past?
Well, I have done a few things. When I was a teenager, I went on holiday just as a teen myself with a group, but I travelled myself to Austria, so that was an experience with my wheelchair because I do use a wheelchair for distance.
Okay.
So I did that on my own, and then in my early 20s, I've done tall ship sailing.
Oh, let me stop you there. Tell me more about what tall ship sailing is. It sounds fascinating.
Well, that was with a, a training ship. I suppose the aim is to increase people's independence and confidence, young people. It was just before I got married, so we went on this trip, and it was in November,
Wow.
so it's cold. But yeah, but it was everyone, whatever some people were in wheelchairs that went on the ship, and there was able-bodied and everything in between. But you all had to do everything. You had to do shifts of watches and things like that. So you were up at 4 in the morning. You
Goodness.
had to do the cleaning of the ship, be involved in the cooking, everything. So
Yeah.
And I also almost got to the crow's nest up the mast, climbing up there, but I couldn't quite manage the top bit because it had one of those rope
Oh
wobbly ladders, so I
gosh.
couldn't. I thought
You're
that's a
obviously
step
not
too far.
bothered with heights then. Heights don't obviously bother you then. I'm not sure whether I would put myself up to the crow's nest on a big tall ship. So
So I
that's
nearly
so
got there.
amazing. Wow,
Yeah,
that's amazing.
I've
So,
done I've done a few things since then. I've because I like water sports and
okay,
winter sports mostly. I've done sailing, done canoeing, rowing, and
fabulous.
I do canoeing still now.
Yeah.
And I'm in a couple of weeks. I'll have my first skiing lesson.
Wow. Are you going onto the indoor slopes? Is that what you're doing?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's something I've not never. I've always been interested in doing, but it's quite pricey to do skiing.
Okay.
And I
I
thought,
just
well, there's no way I can do it standing up. So
no. I just
I'm
think
gonna have a go.
okay, well done. And the amount of things that you've just reeled off there, like it's just shows the type of person you are. That it's like that's been instilled into you from a child. Can do, will do attitude, which is really inspiring. It is absolutely brilliant. So, what I'd like to ask you is one last question, really, and that is, what does it mean to you to be exquisitely human?
Well, to me, I think being exquisitely human means everyone being equal but different.
Yeah,
We're
absolutely.
all unique, and whatever our differences are, we're all the
Yeah.
same, really.
That's right. And, we have all got a bias, haven't we? And, this podcast is all about, changing one bias at a time and one person at a time. And so you've been part of that, Jane. Thank you so much. But, for coming on here and sharing your story because, it will inspire other people and you will continue inspiring and supporting people through the work that you do. So I'd just like to say thank you so much. I really appreciate you being on the podcast today, and we look forward to the next session for another guest. So again, thank you so much, Jane. Thank you for your time. Really appreciate it, and it's been lovely to hear your story.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me, and I
You're
look
very
forward to
welcome.
hearing the other stories.
Okay, you're very welcome. Take care. Bye.
Bye.